ladies and gentlemen, today we're examining deception through a forensic psychology lens. Why do people lie? What types of lies matter in investigations? And how professionals actually assess credibility? I'm Tara, and today I'll be guiding us through today's lecture. First of all, Mariam will explore the motives behind lying, then Anis will categorize the types of liars, and finally, Husna will discuss practical application in forensic settings. Okay, let's start with the basic question. Why do people lie in the first place, Mariam?
Thank you, Tara. Let us talk about the psychological motivations behind lying. Firstly, self-oriented motives. Next is social-oriented motives, emotional drivers, and cognitive and psychological processes. Let us talk firstly about social-oriented motives. One of the most common reasons why people lie is to avoid punishment. This is clear from early childhood, such as when children lie when they break something just to avoid punishment. This is also true for adults, where they hide mistakes in their work just to avoid negative consequences. The fear of negative consequences makes lying feel like the safer option. Next is protecting self-esteem. People have images what we want to be: reliable, competent, and intelligent. By doing this, when people lie, people protect the image when reality threatens that image. For example, lying can be about becoming a shield. For example, when someone claims they did well on an interview or understood something when they actually did it, just to avoid embarrassment. Next is to gain benefits. This is more intentional than the others, because people might exaggerate something that they didn't do, or just to inflate achievements, or claim credit for something they didn't do, just to gain opportunities, status, or money. Next is social-oriented motives. These are motivations where people lie just to maintain harmony or interaction with others. One common motive is to maintain relationship with other people. These are often white lies told to protect other people's feelings, such as when we tell we like something when we actually don't like the gift, or when we lie to save others' feelings. Next is social desirability, also known as impression management. People may appear to be likable, competent, or interesting. This can be especially strong in social media when people want to curate themselves and their lives to be more interesting or exciting. Lastly is to fit in the conformities of society. Someone may prefer to lie about their ideals or preferences, such as going trends or the majority of opinions, just to avoid getting ostracized or getting left out. Next is emotional drivers. Emotion is one of the most big reasons why people lie, sometimes even more strongly than logic. Fear is the most powerful emotion driver. People may lie to avoid rejection, judgment, or consequences. For instance, someone might lie to avoid disappointing their teacher or parents, or someone might lie in fear of negative consequences of what might lies ahead. Next is shame. For some people, they want to hide a part of themselves, such as hard consequences or something they didn't want other people to know. Lying can feel like a barrier between others and what they want to hide. With this, for example, someone might lie about being poor by hiding what they actually make, or behind clothes, or what they tell. Next is guilt. Guilt can cause someone to lie, not just because of fear of what they did, but also for what others may feel, or just to avoid hurting others. For example, someone may lie just to avoid hurting others' feelings, just because they don't want another person to feel responsible or upset. Lastly, the desires. Some people feel desires for improvements or accomplishments, so they lie just to get those accomplishments. Lastly is cognitive and psychological process. Our final category involves deeper mental processes that influences dishonest behavior. One of this is cognitive dissonance reduction. The uncomfortable feeling when our actions don't match what our beliefs. Lying may feel like an escape or making things more consistent. Next is habitual lying. Some people lie for cosmetic reasons, sometimes even when the truth doesn't even harm themselves. Next is protecting a personal narrative. When people tell a personal narrative, some people lie about what they think or what they perceive themselves as. Lying can help protect their identity when reality tries to threaten it. Lastly is avoiding cognitive overload. Sometimes telling the truth takes a mental toll or emotional vulnerability. Sometimes a quick lie makes it easier or mentally less demanding. And to conclude, showing these 4 categories show that lying is rarely about deception, but it is deeply tied to how we feel, think, and interact with others. And now I'm going to pass it back to Tara.
Perfect, Mariam. Thank you so much. So basically, there are white lies, there are lies that protect people. That is so much. So you basically outlined the motives, the why. Now we need to understand the patterns, the how often and in what way. Because somebody who lies wants to avoid trouble can be very different from someone who regularly lies. Anis, can you break down the different types of deceptive behavior we might find in forensic work?
Thank you, Tara. Hi and good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about something that we might have encountered without us noticing, which is lying. There are different types of lies that can be linked to some personality traits to a liar. First, we have white lies, which is always seen as a small and harmless lies that we tell to protect people's feelings or to avoid any awkward situations. For example, when your friend proudly shows you their new haircut, but then you think that it doesn't suit them too well. So you just say, oh, it's look great to you, even if you don't actually like it. The lie isn't meant in a harmful way, but it's more about your kindness and keeping the peace between you and your friends. The second type of lie will be the lie of fabrication. Fabrications involve creating new information that is actually completely made up. For instance, a student might create a new lab result data as they actually face an error during the experiment class. So they create a new one just to get the perfect graph. Or someone might claim they've been somewhere that they've never actually been to, just because to impress the people around them. This type of lies is actually more serious as it will create a new fake reality and may affect the related situation in a long-term cases. Another common type of lie will be the lie of exaggeration. This happens when someone tells about a true event but adds an extra details to make it more sound dramatic and interesting. For example, you claim that you've been in a line for 1 hour when you've actually been there just for 20 minutes. Or maybe you tell everyone that you get the hardest part in the assignment when you actually just do this objective. The truth is there, but it gets stretched. Then we have lies of deception. Lies, this kind of lies is always involve saying something true, but you keep the key point out of the stories. For example, someone is selling a used car, but then they never told the buyers that the car is actually been into an extreme accident. So deception is powerful because it can manipulate people around them about the situation of something due to the lack of the key point of the stories. And lastly will be the plagiarism. Plagiarism is often happen to the students as the student is claiming others people's work, ideas, or even writing. For example, the students always do the copying paragraph from an online without credit. You're basically lying about who created those ideas. Now that we've covered the type of lies, let's move to the next part. Did you guys know that psychologists actually can link the personality traits and the liars? So here I have 6 of the personality traits, and one of them will be the high in neuroticism. Neuroticism is a personality trait that has the tendency to express negative emotions such as depression and anxiety. This kind of person is always easily get stressed and might lie to avoid fear or shame or confrontation. For example, they might lie about their mistakes just to not get scolded by people around them. Next is low conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is a personality trait of someone who's well organized and self-disciplined. Thus, when someone is low conscientiousness, it makes the people less organized, less responsible, and sometimes careless. Because they don't think deeply about the consequences, and lying may be the shortcut to avoid responsibilities. They might lie about an incomplete assignment and pretend they have done their part when actually they are not. Another strong personality will be the narcissism. Narcissistic people crave admiration, as they always want to look successful, talented, and superior in front of others. So they might exaggerate their stories, their achievement, or fabricate it to maintain the image in front of people so that people can always impress towards them. Furthermore, we have Machiavellianism, which is a personality trait that is lied to manipulation and strategic behavior. People hide in Machiavellianism lie deliberately to control situations and gain advantages. For example, they might spread misleading info just to harm someone's reputation if it benefits them. Okay. For instance, the company A will find the weakness of company B, and then they will create the misleading info of the company B so that their reputation is much better than company B. And the fifth one will be the psychopathy. Psychopathic individuals typically lack empathy, guilt, and emotions. Hence, they can lie boldly, frequently, and harmfully without feeling bad or caring about the consequences in the future. These types of lives can be manipulative and very dangerous. And lastly, we have extroversion. Extroverted persons are highly social, talkative, and always interacting with people. Thus, it increases the chances of them to lie. Their lies are often casual and harmless, as they will just want to entertain the group or pretending to like something just to create quick connections. They might pretend that they like the same food, the same character in the movies just to create quick connections. All in all, there are many different kinds of lies, from gentle white lies to serious and dangerous deception and fabrication. Moreover, behind these lies, personality trait can be linked, as some people do it lie just to avoid, to impress, to manipulate people. Understand these patterns help us recognize why people act that way and help us reflect on our own behavior. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anis. We have covered the types of lies that we might encounter and the personality traits. But really, knowing why people lie and their personality traits are all in theory, unless we apply it. And in forensic psychology, application is everything. Let's top it off with how these concepts translate to actual forensic assessment and credibility evaluation.
Thank you, Tara. So now that we understand why people lie and the types of liars we may encounter, I'd like to explore what happens after a lie is told. Specifically, I'll be talking about the consequences of lying, how lies are detected, and finally some practical ways we can reduce dishonesty in our communities, especially in forensic field. When someone lies, it isn't just a simple moment that passes. There are psychological and social effects that follow. Psychologically, lying often creates guilt and anxiety. The brain has to work harder to maintain a lie, remember the details, and keep the story straight, which increases cognitive load. That's why people might pause a little longer or look like they're thinking too hard. It's not always because they're lying, but because lying demands more mental effort than telling the truth. Socially, the consequences can be even more serious. In forensic psychology, we see how lies erode the foundation of trust that relationships. Socially, the consequences can be even more serious. In forensic psychology, we see how lies erode the foundation of trust that relationships rely on. Once trust is damaged, people become more guarded, communication breaks down, and small conflicts can escalate into major interpersonal disputes. And because the truth almost always surfaces, whether through inconsistencies, behavioral clues, or third-party information, the eventual fallout is often worse than the original problem. Over the long term, lying can also harm someone's reputation. If a person lies often enough, people begin to question their sincerity even when they genuinely mean what they say. This happens in the classic "The Boy Who Cried Wolf." In forensic settings, this becomes crucial because credibility can influence investigations, legal decisions, and even the way professionals interact with the individual. So now, when it comes to detecting lies, the common belief is that there are obvious signs, like avoiding eye contact or fidgeting. But in reality, there is no single behavior that guarantees someone is lying. Some honest people are naturally anxious, while some liars are very calm. So instead of relying on one magical tale, we look for patterns. One of the most interesting strategies is something called cognitive mismatch. Instead of watching someone's face, we watch how smoothly their story connects to real-world logic. A person telling the truth can retell their story from any angle, such as forward or backward, because it's based on memory. A liar, on the other hand, has to work from script. If he switch the order, like asking, "Can you tell me that again?" but start from the moment after it happened, their mental script falls apart. It's like pressing shuffle on a playlist that they never created. Occasionally, we might notice inconsistencies in someone's actions or gaps in their story. They might pause longer or show signs of mental training, but again, they are only clues, not proof. Verbally, we pay attention to how the person structures their stories. Liars often provide fewer details, or their statement sounds overly real. Sometimes they use distancing language, like saying "that person" instead of using someone's name. We also have technological tools like polygraphs or newer AI-based systems, but both have significant limitations. Polygraphs measure stress, not lying, while AI still struggles to differentiate anxiety from deception. So, in forensic psychology, we treat technology as supportive evidence, never the final answer. So now I want to finish with something a little different, something that goes beyond the usual advice we always hear about honesty. We all know the basics. Communicate better, hold people accountable, or don't punish too harshly. But honestly, those are the things people remember. So instead, I want to share a few unique psychological strategies that we rarely talk about, but research shows it works. The first one is called the mirror effect. And I love this because it's so simple but so powerful. When someone can see their own reflection, even in a framed surface like a glass window, they actually become less likely to lie. It's almost like the reflection acts as a tiny conscience. Is your own face quietly asking, "Are you sure you want to lie right now?" In forensic psychology, the future self-check works because deception usually thrives in present-focused thinking. Offenders or suspects often lie to reduce immediate anxiety, protect themselves from punishment, or regain control in the moment. By asking, "What would future you think about this decision?" you disrupt that short-term mindset. This technique activates future-oriented moral reasoning, nudging the person into a reflective long-term perspective. Research in forensic interviewing shows that when individuals momentarily shift out of fight-or-flight mode and into a broader time frame, their cognitive load increases while they are defensive. There's also a fun psychological trick called the micro-commitment effect. If you get someone to agree to a very small commitment at the start of the conversation or interrogation, they're much more likely to stay honest throughout the entire discussion. Humans hate breaking their own commitments, even tiny ones. And this leads into the final strategy, turning honesty into part of someone's identity. It's much more effective to say, "You're someone who communicates truthfully," than to say, "Please be honest." When honesty becomes part of how a person sees themselves, they're far less likely to lie, not because they're afraid of consequences, but because it conflicts with who they believe they are. So overall, lying has real psychological and social effects. Detecting lies requires careful analysis rather than assumptions, and reducing dishonesty starts with the kind of environment we create. With that, I'll pass it back to Tara. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Husna, for that very informative. Basically, in forensic psychology, understanding deception isn't about catching lies in everyday life. It's about systematically analyzing credibility in high-stakes situations where the truth matters most. So basically, to summarize our seminar, we explored the motives, why people lie, covered the types, patterns in lying, and application, how we use this in forensic science, as well as how to reduce dishonesty. Thank you so much for listening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.